Welcome to BusinessWorks, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Angelo Leeson, I'm your host, and hope you guys are having an amazing day. And if you're heading home from work, hope you guys are commuting safe. And if you're one of those lucky people who gets to work from home, I hope you guys had an amazing day. And grab a cup of tea because we are going to talk about something special today. Before I speak about what we are going to talk today, we had an amazing topic last week, sustainability. If you missed the show, you can check it out on our YouTube channel. So make sure you subscribe. So today's show, we thought of talking about something really special. You might be a person who's working for an employer, or you might be a person who's working from home. No matter what you do, this will affect you in a personal level. Leadership. Leadership, vision, and values. How are these three combined together? And how will this help you in your work, in your personal life? So many people, when you talk about leadership, you don't think about the personal life, right? But it actually affects. So to talk about this, leadership, vision and values, and how this will affect you as a person, we thought of talking about, bringing someone special in, Anna Sexton. And she is joining from Liverpool today. So let me get her connected to our show. Okay, there's Anna. Anna's connected right now, all the way from Liverpool. Welcome to the show, Anna. Thank you very much for coming in.
Hi, thanks for having us.
And Anna is a person that has workshops for companies, for individuals to improve their skills. And can you speak a bit about what you do, Anna?
Thank you. So I'm trained as an artist, and I use my passion for creativity and getting people to think about themselves in a different way. And everything that I do is linked to personal leadership. And that's the reason why Angelo's asked me to come on today. And I think it's so important that as part of the conversation that we have today, that you have a chance to reflect on your own leadership. So everything that I do is a chance to think about my own leadership in groups and how that affects the group, but also how you being on the call today or watching this video back later, what is it in you that makes you a leader, and how can you use your creativity to bring that into the world, whether it's like Angelo says, whether you work from home or you work in an office, or maybe you haven't worked for a bit, or you're a carer or a parent. Everyone, I think, has a possibility to be a leader, and that's what's really interested me throughout most of my career, and hopefully something that maybe will spark some thoughts for you today. If when you hear the word leadership you think, oh, that's not for me, I don't want anything to do with that. So yeah, my aim for coming on today is to share some thoughts. I'm definitely not an expert. I'm learning all the time about my own leadership and how that can be a challenge sometimes. And hopefully you're going to leave today listening to our conversation with more confidence.
Perfect. And like to start off this show, I have a very specific question for you, Anna. So what is leadership? People talk about leadership all the time, like employers talk about it, employees talk about it, and people are training their employees, on this leadership segments. And what is it?
Great question. What is it? I can only speak about it from my own experience. And so I would say it's very person-centered. So who you are as a person watching this, you will have your own thoughts and beliefs around leadership. And they may be similar to mine or Angelo's, but they also may be really different. And it's important that you grow your own definition of leadership. And I think leadership happens at every point in your life. I don't think, they say people are born leaders, and I think we develop it like any skill or muscle. And many of us actually don't even realize we're being great leaders through the ways we act in our friendships or in our family groups. And so I would say it's important that you find a definition of what leadership is for you. Sometimes that can start with looking at what you think is bad leadership and also what you think is good leadership.
Right. So can you give us some examples of what's right? What's the right way of doing it? Is there a way, like, let's say, now you mentioned what's good leadership and what's bad leadership. So from person to person, it can be different, right? So do we have this benchmark of, like, what is good leadership and what is bad leadership? Do we have a benchmark for that?
Another great question. I would say that the benchmark is shifting. So at the moment, if we're thinking about what's going on in the world, it's probably the best way to look at it without getting too political. Um, Many of the daily newspapers are constantly comparing who's doing well or who's not doing well in relationship to COVID and lockdown. And I think that can happen in our own social groups and work groups. We're looking outside of ourselves all the time as, oh, who's a good leader? Personally, I like clarity and honesty in leadership and try to do that myself. But I also know that I might value honesty, but I would be telling a lie if I said I was honest all the time. So that's where the values comes in for me and where the vision comes in. Knowing what you believe in and what's your backbone, so maybe you call it like your internal compass, will help guide you to find that good leadership both in yourself and in others. So maybe we could define good leadership around what feels right and what feels wrong. Um, and also that leadership, we're all contested. If you look at your own relationship to leadership, my own or yours, Angelo, or other people on watching in, no one is perfect. And I think that's part of it's not a binary good or bad.
Right. So if you have any comments on what leadership is to you, you can drop down and just, like, drop a comment in our comment section, so we can just have a conversation with you as well and get your opinions and ideas through to our guest, and we can have a conversation about your views as well. Talking about leadership and the good and the bad. So most of the companies these days, they are really focusing on developing the values and leadership techniques or skills, I would say, in their employees. So they spend a lot of money on these workshops, on developing their skills. And is this related to the cost efficiency of a company, do you think? Or is it just completely values and a company, I would say, ecosystem, or a company has their own traditions, their internal environment where people would be like, okay, this company has this amazing environment when we work for them. Is it related to that, or just cost efficiency?
Good question as well. I'd say in an ideal world, you're working as a social enterprise. And I know not everyone's set up like that, but you're looking at your people and the people your business affects. You're looking at the profit, because I believe, looking at good business practice is about making money in an ethical way. And you're looking at how you have a relationship with the planet and the environment. So this is talking like in an ideal scenario. If we're thinking about what we value and you work in an environment where you have a good relationship with the person on reception and the people who are part of the cleaning team and you don't see them as any different, yet you also can have good conversations with the senior, CEO, the board, if that's how your company's structured, why wouldn't leading with your values and your vision affect efficiency? In fact, you would hope it would inspire motivation. And this really it's quite a contested word of productivity. I think more and more communities who work in business are seeing how much it's important to invest in their staff, because actually well-being is so paramount. and yet you've got to be careful that you do it with the right will and the right reasons. Does that make sense?
Right, yeah, it does actually. With your experience, this gave me some thoughts about your experience in doing these workshops, right? You meet a lot of people, you meet a lot of company owners, you meet people who owns businesses, small to medium sized to large businesses. So, with your experience, do you think there are like amazing leaders out there that you can call, okay, these people are amazing? And when you think about these groups that you work with, do you think that certain people don't have those qualities? And is there some link towards these qualities and values of, like you mentioned before as well? But with your experience, how does this link? Like, do you think that some people have that leadership skills in them and some people don't?
I would say that everybody has latent abilities to be a leader, and we all have different ways of expressing our qualities. So it wouldn't make sense to me that one person has a certain quality and another person doesn't. It's just maybe they've grown up and don't need to express their resilience as much as someone needs to express their courage. So I would say that we all have inherent human qualities, and that part of being a leader is having those qualities called out. So I might be really creative, well, I am. However, I need to call on the quality of logic a lot and thoughtful thinking, which maybe takes me a little bit more to do. And that's part of leadership. It's knowing what quality or preference or behavior is required in a certain circumstance. I think, listening to the sort of first part of the question, the people I've met in my career, and it's been very varied, who are good leaders are people who are quite shapeshiftery. They may have come from one industry and move into another. They may be really young but just have this incredible aptitude for some reason. And then there may also be someone who's never done a business before, but they have a willingness to listen and apply what they're being taught by people who maybe not are experts, but more like they're 2 chapters ahead in a book. So they don't have it locked down, and
Yeah.
they're honest about that.
Right. Yeah, that's like when I speak to certain people, I can also feel that, even with our clients, even with similar businesses, when we start having conversations, you can see that different people have different values, and some people do it differently, even young people who have amazing leadership skills. Like, you feel like being a follower, and followership is a completely different, I would say, topic. And and especially, I wanted to ask you this, since we are, talking about leadership and what leadership is. Can you learn to become a leader?
Definitely, absolutely. Um, otherwise that means that goes back to this idea that people are born with it, and it's only a certain group of people who, within the current systems that we live within, are often the same kind of person, who look the same. And actually, it's more about reimagining what leadership is, because many of us haven't ever had a role model that looks like us, and or seen people in the entrepreneur magazines that look like us. And so it's about programs like this really opening up the platform and letting different people speak, viewers coming on with different viewpoints that maybe are different. And I think it's important that we can learn anything if we put our mind to it. And also, there's part of it that is also an acceptance that we might have some limiting beliefs around leadership. So if we've experienced bad leadership, both in our family or in schools or in governments or businesses we've worked in or volunteered in, we may have barriers to thinking, oh, I don't want to be a leader like that. But actually, life is showing us that different types of leadership may be soft skills, of emotional intelligence, of kindness, of basically being willing to say, look, do you know what you've just said, I don't know what you're talking about, or you've called me out on some behavior that actually is really damaging. And that's leadership. So that can be anyone.
That's perfect, because some people might be having this idea that, they are born to be leaders. You can actually, as Anna says, you can learn to become a leader. And we are going for a quick advert break. And this show won't be possible unless, if we don't have the support of our sponsors. So we have some special announcements from our sponsors. We'll be right back, and we are talking about leadership.
This is my dad. He was once a bubbly, happy, and positive person. He had been a cancer patient for many years. When I was younger, I remember our long winter walks, the fun times in the park, and all of those hilarious jokes. After recovery, he was constantly tired, demotivated, and closed off. I didn't see the amazing smile anymore. That's when I developed my first well-being range using what my mom used on me as a kid, coconut oil. I incorporated coconut oil with my extensive research in aromatherapy oils to help improve his mood. So I gave him a moisturizer, diffuser, and candle, which we named Caribbean Mood. I saw a difference in him, and I saw the amazing smile he used to have. I knew I had to share this with the world. Okay, giving the organic lifestyle you deserve.
Welcome back to BusinessWorks, ladies and gentlemen, and we are talking about leadership today. And we've got a special guest talking about leadership. And we were talking about what leadership is before our advert break. And we thought of continuing the discussion with a with another special question. But before that, make sure you subscribe to our channel, because we will be having this show every Thursday at 5 to 6. And we are launching a new segment which I will be talking about later down in the show. So you make sure that you watch till the end. So we have Anna Sexton, and she's joining from Liverpool. She's talking about leadership and leadership values and how it all combines to your personal life as well as your professional life. You must be a mother, you can be a mother, you can be an employer, employee, or just working from home, working on your own business. Leadership skills will help any one of you. I personally think I can get Anna's view on this as well later on. Once in your lifetime, at least once, you'll need some of those leadership skills. At least once you'll have to become a leader. So Anna is on our show today, Anna Sexton. So we are gonna get her online now. Let's see if she can. There she is, Anna. So we were talking
Hi.
about leadership. So now I'm gonna start our second segment with this question: why talk about leadership? Why do we? Because leadership, we hear this word everywhere, leadership, and loads of workshops done on leadership. But why talk about it? Is it that important?
Another great question. Why talk about it? I think it's important because actually when we don't talk about it, the leadership that happens in our organisations or political parties or community centres, anywhere that we form as humans in groups, whether it's 1, 2, or 25 or a million, if we don't talk about it, we don't have a chance to really dissect it and think about what works for us or what doesn't work. Many of the systems that we operate within have been in place for hundreds of years, and it's only, I think, for myself, through questioning what works, can I start to become part of maybe being a person that might help create new structures that work more for people.
Right. So when you say why, adding onto that question, so how come it's that important in our lives? I know that you said that it's important, but in personal, let's go to our personal lives. We all know that it's going to help in our professional life at one point at least. But in personal life, how will this help? Where can we use some of these leadership skills in our personal lives? Can you explain it a bit, please?
Yeah, another great question. Well, it's only recently that I found out what the meaning of confidence means, and that's about self-trust. If I've got it correct, I might have got that wrong. That's how I interpret it. So if we're going out and serving in our communities or through paid work or studies or faith groups, yet when we come home we're not doing the same for ourselves, I think there's an imbalance. So I would say that choosing to be a leader in my own life, and I think people watching this, you also do it in your own life, is about working out how you live your life, true to your values. So that's about leadership. It's like, what will I put up with? What will I not put up with? Where will I invest my time, my money? Even if money isn't a big thing in your life right now, or you feel quite time poor, you can still choose where you invest that. And that's about leadership. And that might seem abstract because, again, I think our concepts of leadership are really old-fashioned. So if you get to decide what type of leader you are, that I would hope would start to show up in different areas of your life, both in your home, maybe who you're friends with. I think it's why the personal development world is so popular, because people are realizing that it starts with themselves.
So are you saying that, like this will help our personal growth as well? So as a leader, let's say I'm learning some new leadership skills, and I want to increase my leadership skills in a way, and this will help my personal growth as well.
I would
Is
say
that
so. I mean,
correct?
yeah, I, I don't think there isn't a time when you're not learning about yourself, and it takes a sort of level of vulnerability and self-awareness to say, even if it's like you're doing this now, maybe you haven't done it before or you're new to it, so there'll be loads of things that you learn along the way that will make you feel uncomfortable and vulnerable, and that makes someone seeing you on screen maybe think, oh my god, I could do that. And I think that's my understanding of leadership, is you sometimes don't even realize you're leading, but someone else would be inspired by you and go, wow, if that person's got the bravery to go on a live broadcast, well, maybe I could do that. Or actually, maybe I want to create my own live broadcast because they've seen you, Angelo, doing it with your team. So there's a great phrase, and I don't know who said it at all. You can't be what you can't see. So if we're so used
Right.
to seeing a certain type of person in leadership, or at whatever level of the hierarchies that exist in all different cultures, the times have shifted. There's so many new ways of seeing people lead, whether it's through their Instagram account or people that set up petitions online. I think the concept of leadership is very, very different now, because we have a much more diverse, well, in many places, a much more diverse view of life, and the people that certainly I come into contact with are very diverse. And so I've had to change my perception of what leadership is.
So, like you said something really interesting. So, someone might see us, maybe they'll see you, and then think, okay, if they can do it, I can do it. That's followership, isn't it? Like, if someone, is it okay for someone to follow someone, or just look at someone and be like, okay, I'm gonna follow this guy or girl, and become someone special, so I can put my values into this into something that I learned from someone else, and become a leader. Is it okay for someone to follow a part of someone else and just get motivated from someone else?
I would say that one of the big things that doesn't get talked about is followership. So actually, it takes a different set of skills, but that are not that dissimilar to leading, to be a good follower. And good, again, it's a binary word, but you're leading the conversation. It's your show. So I'm a guest, so I follow your lead. But when I respond to your question, maybe for a short amount of time, I'm leading the conversation that leads you to think of something different. So
Indeed.
if we didn't put being a follower as lower than, and we didn't put leaders as higher than, then that, again, it's an old-fashioned saying, isn't it? Too many cooks spoil the broth, or there's too many chiefs, and whatever the saying is not everybody can lead and not everyone can follow. And sometimes, say if it was, let's say in a situation of stress where someone in a team needs to say, right, we need to leave this building now, that's quite a direct form of leadership. And I think, most people would follow that. But maybe there's other times when, say, you're designing a project and you all have different ideas, and you say, okay, for the next day or so, we're all going to throw our ideas into the mix. And on the third day, we're going to start to decide which ones to use. So at that point, everybody's leading. And throughout the process, different levels of leadership are needed to move things forward.
Right. And there was another interesting point that you made, like, so when there are too many leaders in a project, now I have personally experienced this. So when we were doing certain projects, if too many people are leading, we might get into difficult situations. So we have experienced that something like that, where too many people are trying to lead a project. So do you think that it's like you said, it should be a flat hierarchy. And sometimes is it important to step back and become a follower in a project or in your personal life? I'm just a bit confused as to, when to be a follower and when to be a leader. Is that a quality of a leader, to know when to become a follower?
I think that what you're asking, this is the challenge with leadership and followership, and part of being human, that when we're schooled in certain ways, we're schooled to know the answer, and that certain people are in control and there are rules to follow. And as we take on more leadership roles in our family, as we get different ages, or we have different life circumstances or jobs or volunteering, we get to set the agenda a little bit more. And again, I think this is why leadership training is so interesting. When it's done well, actually, even when it's done not so great, you're going to pick something up. Human beings are incredibly sponge-like when they're learning. And I think most of us would say we want to be better, be the best we can be, whatever that is. So learning that maybe sometimes it's a good thing to be quieter, certainly that's something for me to practice. But maybe someone who has always been told they're shy, well, that doesn't mean they don't have a viewpoint, and their leadership journey might be to think, well, often I just sit back and watch things happen. Maybe I don't feel confident speaking in a meeting, but could I start sending an email to the chair of that meeting afterwards and say, oh, look, I've had this idea, could we bring it up at the next meeting? So I think we've got to break it down from being, extroverts are better leaders or introverts are shy. I think it's, the more I've learned about leadership, the more I don't know. And people present a certain way because they think they're going to fit in. And actually, what's exciting about the new ways of working, and particularly home working on Zoom a lot, I find it so interesting to see people a little bit more relaxed than maybe they would be in the workplace. Maybe they've grown a beard and they wear a t-shirt to work when they used to wear a suit. I actually find that more connecting. But I know that other people really don't like working on Zoom, and I guess that's again personal preference. So I'm probably not answering your question, but I think it's knowing when to come forward and when to step back. I think that's a really good metaphor for leadership.
Right. That's why we had some personal experiences like around that. So I think it's important, like Anna said, to know when to step back and to step forward as a leader. And followership is a completely different topic that we will discuss in the future. So make sure you comment below and drop us a comment, drop us a message, and let us know what you think if you need that specific topic. And this is a show about you. So this is about sharing knowledge. So if you feel that this helps you in any way, share it with your friends and your family, and make sure you subscribe to our channel, where you can get all the notifications on our upcoming shows, and you can watch all our past shows where all the streams will be recorded. And we are going to go on a quick break just to show some of the messages of our sponsors. So we will be right back.
AI Infinity really is about helping companies to enable them to use AI at the optimum level, and to be more AI-driven companies to solve complicated use cases about the fraud, an example, or maybe customer engagement, facial recognition, and we just wanted to help them to be that. We would see ourselves as visionaries in detecting some edge computing on a very real-time basis of applications what we have here, to enable companies to apply in different verticals.
Welcome back to BusinessWorks. We are talking about leadership with Anna Sexton. So we were talking about what leadership is and why talk about leadership. So we got an amazing explanation from Anna where she does loads and loads of workshops for clients. So with her experience, she was talking about what leadership is and why talk about leadership and some of the qualities that a leader would hold. And a leader is not born a leader. You can learn to become a leader. That's an important discussion we had with Anna. And now we are thinking of talking about implementation of these skills. How can we implement all the things that we spoke about in your personal life? How can we do it? So let's get Anna online and ask her how we can get all these learnings that we discussed today and skills that we discussed today. And how can we get this implemented in our personal life? So Anna, over to you.
I would say start where you are. And, you know, sometimes maybe you're watching this and you're like, oh, this leadership thing isn't for me. Can be quite fun to look in magazines for pictures of people who you think are inspiring leaders. If you use Pinterest, you could set up a board, or even think about qualities that maybe your best friend has said to you, like, oh, you're such a loyal friend, or you're a really good listener, or I really like it when you're extra thoughtful and, you know, you sent me a food package when I was ill. You know, you might not think that that's leadership. Or like I think of lots of the mums and dads that I work with, their time management is incredible. They fit into 20 minutes in a day what probably someone like me might do in 3 hours, because I don't have the same time pressures. So that could be something you write down or use your phone. So that's the first thing. Start to identify what qualities you see in others that you like as leaders, and no doubt they're in you. Even if they're not expressed yet, they're definitely in you because you can see it in someone else. And then I think when you've worked out what that quality is, think about how it could show up in a leadership way. So if you're someone who's really patient, where could that patience be used to good in your life? Now you might just think, oh, well, that's just me, I'm patient. But there's lots of people I'm sure you might know or in your wider circle who maybe don't have a lot of patience. They're maybe quick to get frustrated or a bit flustered. So it's simple things where you think, oh, well, where could I apply my patience? And that might be you're working on a project at the moment and one of your colleagues is getting really stressed about it. So you identify, I'm going to be really patient the next time I speak to my colleague and we're talking about that project. And because you've got that purpose and intention to bring your patients forward, you will start to notice different results in that quality of conversation. So although that's maybe not massive, if you start to break down leadership into little chunks where you can show up differently in your life, then you'll start to build your confidence.
So we have to start little by little from small things in life, is it?
Definitely. Often you will think for most of your life you're not a leader. So maybe it's not worrying about whether you are a leader or not. It's thinking about it differently and saying, I'm going to start bringing forward my special qualities and share them with the world, and see what happens when I start to be more intentional about sharing my qualities in a way that lives out my values. So maybe I have a strong sense of justice and fairness. I've had a colleague that I've worked with, and her sense of fairness and justice comes out so much that you can't afford to make a bad decision that isn't fair for the group that you're working with, because she will always come back to that in a meeting. She's very clear, oh, I don't think that decision is fair. And that's a really interesting barometer to have a person with that much confidence to share their values in a group. And no one, there is this idea that you can change overnight, and I do think on some levels that's true. But I also think, like learning any new form of language or behavior, we have to build on it little by little. And we also have to realize that consistency compounds over time, but also we're complex people and life is complex. So we might have a set of intentions, to be purposeful as a leader, and then an outside situation, say like lockdown, comes and that really changes our plans. So if we aren't flexible and kind with ourselves, we'd be trying to fulfill a plan that isn't going to work. So I think I'm probably like contradicting myself, but I think that's part of leadership, is that it's not a linear process. And if anyone tells you it is, I think, well, that maybe is the way their brain works, but I don't experience it like that.
So talking about, like getting involved with your, like you were saying that, like if your friends and family say certain things about you and, like your qualities, and how can we involve our friends and families to improve our leadership skills? Like, is there a way of speaking to each other and talking about the skills that we possess? Because sometimes we feel that, someone else might see something that we don't see about us, some qualities that we have. Someone else might notice it. So how can we get our friends and family or people who are close to us involved in developing our leadership skills, Sana?
I think another great question. I mean, think about it. I've been having quite a lot of difficult conversations with friends and family and work colleagues at the moment around Black Lives Matter. Those conversations are things I've only ever had in the workplace, really, linked to jobs that I've done in very diverse communities. So maybe it's starting a conversation. What does leadership mean to you? What makes a good leader? I mean, they could use some of the questions that you've asked me as a prompt. Also, I think it's quite a sweet thing to be acknowledging of your friends and family when you see them being in leadership. My sister, for example, she's incredible. My brother as well, how they manage to juggle their work life and their family life, being a parent and a partner. That's not my life experience, and I think that's incredible. And when I spend time maybe writing a message to my sister on WhatsApp, she's really shy about it. But actually, I think it's important that someone takes the time to say that to her, because she probably doesn't even realize what an amazing person that she is. So I think part of leadership is trying things out in a place that's safe. There might be people in your family or friendship groups that aren't the right people to have that conversation with. And I think it's about picking your time. And also, I think it is about self-esteem. So what we said earlier was that all these qualities live inside us. And like you've just said, maybe we don't see it. We've got a bit of a blind side. Maybe we're a bit humble or modest. So I think being on a leadership journey is about being willing to be surprised by people. And also, I think sometimes when we start on this journey as well, we get feedback about things that don't work. And that's definitely been painful for me in the past, because I associated feedback with doing something wrong. And actually, now I'm much better at accepting it as a way of refining my behavior if I want to, because it links to my values. I want to connect with other human beings. So if I'm using a tone of voice that's really disconnecting, it's not going to benefit me to not change that,
And
if that makes sense.
yeah, indeed. And like when you spoke about that, I felt that when you talk about creativity, right, and feedback, is it a leadership skill to actually get negative feedback and grow with those feedback?
Good question. So first of all, I would say in an ideal world, we don't frame feedback as negative. Unfortunately, for most of us, we've grown up in a schooling system where things are either right and wrong. Some areas of creativity give a bit more allowance for personal interpretation. So in an ideal world, we're working towards this idea that, say you want to give me some feedback on the conversation today, we can look at it in three different ways. One, we can agree with it. It's like, oh yeah, God, I totally get that. That makes total sense. The second way to respond to it is like, okay, maybe they've got a point. I want to go away and think about that. And the third one is, no, I don't agree. And when I learned that as a way of taking feedback, my whole life changed, because it was like, oh, I don't just have to agree with this person. I can take it on board and think about it and decide what I want to do with it. And I think a key part here is that whoever gives feedback, obviously if they're shouting at you, that's quite hard to take. We don't want that. But the person who gives feedback, it's as hard a job for the person to give feedback as it is for the person to receive it, because it takes a lot of courage to say, oh, look, mate, let's have a chat about something that didn't work in a meeting, or and then me saying, oh, look, yeah, do you know what, you've got a point, that really, I'm sorry if that offended you. Or I think to grow as a person and grow as a leader, it's important that we're able to reflect on our behaviours and how they impact on people, but also not every bit of feedback that someone gives you is going to be true.
That's correct. I mean, if there are no information in that feedback for you to grow, or that's not going to help you. Like I always think, because you're also a creative person and I'm also a creative person. So sometimes when I make music, or when we do videos as a group, we get loads and loads of feedback. Some negative, which I really love. Positive feedback, you can't learn anything from those. So what I learned to do was, when we received negative, so-called negative feedback, like you just told, we shouldn't call it negative, because we can actually learn from those. So we think as to how we can improve it. So that's how we can change the whole I would say the view of taking in feedback. And as Anna said, that can actually help your leadership skills. And now we are going for a quick break, but after the break we are gonna have a Q&A segment, and we have some questions on board, and we'll get Anna to answer some of your questions. We'll select the best questions from those. I'm sorry if we won't be able to answer all your questions, but we'll catch you after a short break.
AI Infinity really is about helping companies to enable them to use AI at the optimum level and to be more AI-driven companies to solve complicated use cases about the fraud, an example, or maybe customer engagement, facial recognition, and we just wanted to help them to be that. We would see ourselves as visionaries in detecting some edge computing on a very real-time basis of applications what we have here to enable companies to apply in different verticals.
Welcome back to BusinessWorks, ladies and gentlemen. We were talking about leadership. And now it's our Q&A round. So if you have any questions, we have some questions on board. And if you have more questions, you can comment down below. And you can see all the questions down in our ticker. And we are getting Anna to answer your questions. And before we start the segment, I would like to inform you that we are starting a special segment from next week onwards, where we are going to bring in selected businesses and let the business owner talk about their journey. So if you want to feature in our show, write to us. Make sure you subscribe, comment on one of our videos, and drop your email, or you can email us at info@tailmedia.co.uk, which you can see in our ticker. And we will select one of you from the email list and let us know why you want to be featured. So we would love to have you on one of our shows, so you can tell your story. So we are going to start that from next week onwards. And make sure, if you're watching this show, share it with your friends, share it with your family, share it with your colleagues. Maybe people can learn something new from these shows. And if you want specific topics, business topics, you can write to us, email us, and make sure you let us know your thoughts, because it's all about you. If you want certain topics, we'll try our best to get those topics featured on our show, and invite guests who are experts in that particular area, to give you more knowledge on that specific area. And we have Anna Sexton talking about leadership today. Leadership, vision, and values. So let's get our first question on board. If I read it, Mike is asking this specific question: what values are most important to you as a leader? So that's Mike asking the question. Over to you, Anna.
Thanks, Mike. Most important to me, honesty, creativity, integrity, community and contribution, I would say. And there's a list on our website on Open to Create, all with the letter C at the beginning. But actually, it's important that as a business owner, I regularly review what my values are. Legacy is also important. So as I've grown in my industry, people ask me to do different things. So now I'm an ambassador for some brands, which 10 years ago, I would never imagine that would be something someone would ask me to do. So it's a great question, and I would say that they sound similar throughout my career, but they've changed as well along the way.
So just a quick question from me, just to add to that particular question from Mike. Can these qualities or skills or values change over time, Anna? I know that you said that it can change, but is it a definite yes? Will it really change down along the line?
Oh, never ask a question like this. Definitely yes. Oh, for me, I don't think a human being is static. And I would say that creativity is a value that I will have all through my life, but it may not be expressed in the same ways. So even though I trained as a fine artist and love painting, and I've been a theatre director, at the moment I'm really enjoying the creative output of cooking and sewing. So I would say that the value is the same, but the expression is really different at different times in my life. I can't imagine never having creativity as a value, but I don't know what's going to happen in my life. So that's probably a really vague answer to that question.
Yeah.
I still stick with my instinct is that people change and their values do alter somewhat as they grow and change as a person, and new people come in and out of their lives. And I think that's important that, many of the values that I grew up with were things I sucked in from school or people I learnt from or family members. No, they may not be mine.
Indeed. So we've got another question from Claire. Do values change our leadership style?
Ooh, do values change our leadership style? I would hope so. I think, let's say you work in 3 different places and they all value transformational leadership, but they're all really different and they're serving different types of people. If I try to use the same leadership style in each of those institutions or community groups, that's not going to work. So if I value integrity, but my clients all value transformational leadership, I need to use my integrity to lead, define what transformational leadership looks in all those 3 settings. So in a way, it's sort of like being a bit not a chameleon, but if authenticity is really important, and that's talked about a lot now, and it's a hard one because authenticity requires different things in different circumstances, I think.
Okay, so we have another question from Bobby. So, can you reflect on past personal experience, see what skills you present with? It's more like a comment. What do you say about this, Anna?
I think what they might be saying is reflecting on personal and past experiences, what skills have maybe I learned linked to leadership, perhaps. Let's interpret it like that for a moment. I think every experience that I've had has given me another building block to add to my leadership toolkit. My life changed when I learned coaching as a tool, because I was repeatedly getting feedback from partners, family members and friends and my colleagues that I wasn't very good at listening. And it got so loud I couldn't ignore it. So that was a really good experience of thinking, well, hang on a minute, I'm getting this feedback and I really value connection, but I'm getting told I don't listen. So what do I do about it? And I didn't actually know. I didn't have any skills because clearly I wasn't listening very well. So learning coaching tools has helped me slowly apply them in my life, and now they're second nature. So I think, yeah, like you were talking about feedback before, if you've got the sort of ability to take on feedback that you hear more than once, certainly in my business, if we get feedback from 3 customers that is the same, we know there's a problem. We would always take everyone's feedback as important, but it's when you see a pattern that you start to think, oh, actually, we're not doing something right here. We need to change the way we approach things. And maybe we don't know how to do that. We need to bring someone in So I'm not sure if that definitely answers that question, but hopefully it shows that we're always learning, and often things that are hard to hear are actually the greatest gifts for us to change and learn new skills.
Perfect. I think it's more like a comment as well. So Bobby, I hope you got your answer or the view that Anna had on your comment. So unfortunately, our time is up for today. It's 6 o'clock. So thank you very much, Anna. Thank you for coming down to the show. And I learned certainly I learned something new, and I hope you guys learned something new too. So you can check Anna's website down below. I have put all the links down in the information section, so you can speak to Anna, link with Anna, and get some of her amazing workshops. So that's it for today, but we have an amazing topic for next week. We are talking about virtual reality and the future of training. You know, we have virtual reality applied to different segments, and we are specifically talking about how the training industry is changing. So all you have to do is subscribe and make sure you check all our shows. And season 2, this is our second episode of season 2. See, episode 1 was about sustainability. Make sure you check that show. We received actually more than 5,000 views from UK. So I hope you can learn something new from sustainability as well. So, and I hope you learned something new from today's show. Thank you very much. Have an amazing evening, and I'll catch you next week with VR and the future of training. Take care now.